Welcome. There's a game where you owe money and get lost in the world to be able to pay it. Oh, and you might just die of anything. Except for the fact you never really die. This is the saga of a game called Outward. If I was to explain this game to someone in 5 seconds, I'd say it's a strange baby of Dark Souls and Don't Starve, though it's a little more than that. Starting a new game means new character, and immediately I have to say the characters need more detail. But on to the story. My tribe forces me to pay a debt because of what my grandmother did. My best solution is an expedition to get rich. Of course, the ship gets wrecked, the treasure is lost, and I barely reach the coast. This is also a very loose tutorial. I learn I can equip a torch, I learn I can collect food like berries, and I pick up whatever else is on the ground. Further down the beach, my best friend is devastated over how many were lost and points me to the nearest bed so we can rest and go back to where we live. But there's still a small part of this very loose tutorial remaining. There I can grab a sword and fight a couple of beasts, learning I can take parts from creatures to use them, including for food. There's also a secret stash in a hollow tree that happens to have a pot for cooking. So now it's a good time to go back, use a bandage to recover some health, and then try to cook some of what I found. Cooking is pretty much like crafting in other survival games, but on this game if I don't have the right recipe, the food goes bad. And I don't want that, because hunger is just one of my many concerns in this game, like disease, thirst, or sleep. And speaking of sleep, that's one option when I use a bed or tent. I can also repair my gear, and depending on where I am, I also need to stand guard to avoid ambushes. It's time to head back and deal with the consequences. I wake up in my family's lighthouse and need to get ready. First I grab a much needed backpack, and then I go through my belongings for more gear. Then I head down to the kitchen, forge. I mean, it's both. It has a recipe and some ingots. Oh, seems like there's people at the front door. And they're mad. While I was away, my debt kept rising, and now with the people that died on the shipwreck, I owe the money for those lives too. Lucky for me, the tribal leader stops my good neighbors from getting violent and sets a goal for my late payments. My best shot is to go out in the world, but before I go, the guard captain wants to make sure I'm ready and even teaches me a combat skill. The question now is, will that help? First steps out the gate are easy. There's almost always secret stashes with weapons and tools that can be sold. The problem is most merchants are kinda cheap when buying from me, but expensive when selling back. Soon enough I had to find other ways to make more money. Selling the fish I caught helped, but doing side quests was a lot more valuable, like my best friend sharing the location of a treasure chest. Yet, there's a problem with that. Gathering berries to make jam to sell is easy. Crossing the map? Not so much. This is what I can best describe as a giant albino chicken, and it took almost half of my health to beat it. A chicken, by far one of the least menacing enemies in the game. Not to mention that most enemies will cause some type of status effect, creating another challenge if I decide to fight. For example, this oversized bird left me in pain, so now I'm weaker against almost every other enemy. This is the biggest challenge this part of the game. Either I keep harvesting resources and loot whatever I find, hoping merchants are okay to buy it, or I risk it to cross the map for the quests. And that can go well, or very extremely definitely bad, which it did. Except I didn't die. Outward doesn't let you die. There's actually only 2 or 3 scenarios where defeat is indeed permanent. Instead I wake up beaten up, out of health and stamina, but with my backpack close by. Worst case, I lose money or things to sell. But it's not really about the money lost. When I get knocked out, a huge amount of time goes by, so my deadline is coming up soon. Again, I have to make my way through beasts and bandits, but I'm still too weak, and this time I'm captured by a rival tribe. And this type of outcome is another reason why this game needs to chill. It seems they were nice enough to leave me clothing and a weapon, even though I'm a prisoner, but look at my stats. I can't recover here, so I'll just be defeated again in the same exact way. Lesson is, don't be defeated. Eventually I do get the debt settled. Not gonna lie, I just started a new save and stayed closer to home, no more bandits for me. But anyways, that's part 1. For the second part, both my best friends are leaving, so I say my goodbyes. Well, actually, this is how the game introduces the 3 factions I can join. Oliel discusses joining the Holy Mission, Izan is going to leave the tribe system by joining the Heroic Nation, and then Rissa offers a spot in the Blue Chamber ruled by the tribe leaders. Now, whatever the choice I make, what really matters is getting ready for the huge journey necessary to even get to the locations where I can join the factions. And the biggest challenge is finding how to work the map. There's the compass, sure, the locations are marked there, true, but unlike other games, there's no active player marker. Then obviously there's the whole survival theme, meaning I still have to cook and sleep. Good thing I can do both of those almost anywhere. And it's also a good thing I can craft a basic bed or start a campfire without having to learn how to actually do it, unlike almost every other crafting option. Finally, need to keep an eye on travel rations. Can't visit different regions without them. though all of them suck. These swamps? Toxic water. Really, that's it. Can't touch or drink. This forest? Not really a bad spot, but a bad neighborhood. Got ghosts, assassins, mages, weird insect humanoids, some forgotten gods, and it doesn't get better. Nice city though, but that's it. Oh, and please don't get me started on the desert. I swear I couldn't hate any other region as much as I hate this one. The heat alone is reason to never do any quest in here. And sure, it's very nice to have cacti that drop a fruit that helps fighting the heat, but just trying to work the map around here is one huge puzzle. The desert is a challenge, and definitely not for a first time experience. So, that's it. Choose a faction, each gets a different story, but all get the same final boss. Well, kinda. The game makes it look like there's 3 factions to join, but there's another one. Right at the village gates, I can use a caravan to travel to a new region and join the Sorabor Academy. There's more intrigue to this faction, and the story doesn't focus so much on the one big bad, but the region has spots of corruption that make it almost as bad as the desert. So, no matter the faction or the region, there's always going to be a challenge. And again, I don't mean the combat. That's the easy part. It's the survival management that makes this a different game. I can use bandages to stop bleeding, but what if I have an infection? Tea can stop a cold, but what if I throw it up because of indigestion? Some wounds make me take more damage, others drop my defense. These are constant concerns, making exploration feel kinda impossible to manage. If only I had some help. Oh yeah, time to get some sweet revenge on the bandits that captured me in the beginning. Honestly, it's not about making things easier, it's just more fun this way. Well, I mean, it makes combat a lot easier, of course it does. And being able to take down tougher enemies means exploring more areas of the game. And exploring more areas means more money, meaning better equipment. Yet, I think it's more fun with 2 people because now it's 2 people trying to figure out the survival part. One might get poisoned, the other is starving, but both can look out after each other. Not to mention one little detail I've left aside. All missions have a timer. There's a number of days to complete them. Having a second person around makes combat easier, meaning I die less, meaning I can complete missions before they expire, which is kinda big deal after the final mission. Defeating the game's final boss unlocks a mission to help another faction rebuild after a rebellion. Except, every step of this quest means a new deadline, and an absurd amount of resources needed to advance. After reaching the location they chose for their new city, I'm given complete control over the building plans. It's a complete change of pace from the rest of the game, building blueprints for buildings, placing them around, managing city funds and resources. I have to admit I was a little surprised. Not a lot of games decide to give this amount of content after the game is over. Though, to be fair, paying for a whole city to rise out of nothing is rough. So again, it helps to have someone to go on expeditions on this new region to grab some resources to trade. Not to mention the creatures and monsters around here are super difficult, like, I get it, endgame content, but calm down. Of course, this isn't all there is to it, this is a whole new region that has both extreme heat but also extreme cold. Yep, they grabbed what made the desert bad and made it worse. But there's also good stuff, like one of the things that immediately caught my attention was a weird mechanical fortress that keeps changing its location around the map. Then obviously there's a bunch of lore about the rebellion. As I go along building the city, the story starts taking shape too, and I learn why the rivals kicked out their former masters and why this new city matters so much. Oh, and there's a hidden forge inside the volcano to craft special weapons, but it needs a special blacksmith and the special parts hidden all over the place. Though I have to admit, the one thing that I really cared about was building the city. To see it go from being an abandoned quarry to getting its first buildings to finally having gates built. Feels good. And when that's done, well, I can start over. But instead of using the same character again on a new game plus, there's an altar where I can leave an item for my next run. And seeing Outward offers so many weapons and skills, I can always try a different style, pick a different faction, and explore other regions. My only problem with this game, besides the limited voice acting and limited character detail, is how dying of everything is frustrating in a good way. Thank you for joining me on the saga of Outward. Had some fun seeing me struggle to survive? Well, press that like button. Maybe you think you could do better, or maybe survival games aren't your thing. Leave me a comment, join this saga. This might be the most challenging game on the channel. Go make your comparison with the other videos. Now, if you like this video or any of the others I've done, then go ahead and subscribe. That way I'll be sure to keep adding to the channel. If your basic needs are all in check, then check my social media for your gaming needs. Now, if you don't mind, I need to relax after this game. Bye.